Welcome into the Bison postgame show with the Forum's Mike McFeely and Jeff Kolpack. I'm Sam Goetzinger. A big one for the Bison today. They advanced to the national championship. They're headed to Frisco after a 28-21 win over the arch rivals, South Dakota State. Mike, what were the initial thoughts after the game here? That was a good one, wasn't it?
Every time, those of us who've been around here for 100 years and have seen this entire FCS run, you think Bison can't top the games they've already played here in the Fargo Dome. And I don't know if this one topped all the other playoff games, all the other exciting semifinals and everything else, but it was pretty good. This was a pretty good football game. And then to beat their arch rival, to end the little mini championship run that South Dakota State was on, to end the careers of all those seniors of the Jackrabbits that had beat NDSU like 5 times in a row, to get back to Frisco, to be able to celebrate against the Jackrabbits. Fantastic. What a fantastic afternoon of football. Just
Absolutely. Great. What was going through your mind, Jeff?
Bryce Lance. Yeah. A rare social media tweet, by the way, by Trey Lance, not long after Bryce caught that one-handed grab, which will go down as one of the greatest catches in NDSU history. It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be. And it's in the Division I era anyway. I throw it up there with Tim Polsick mentioned the Zach Vra when he jumped over the back.
Reached over the guy.
But how about, on a catch, Destin Talbert, the one-handed interception that he made against James Madison in the 2019 semifinals.
But this one was to go to Frisco, man. Mm-hmm. Talbert's was as well. But this one, I know that Vra's catch was amazing, but this was the catch.
And that supersedes that for sure. I agree. But everybody thought it was out of bounds, including me. I know we're up in the nosebleed seats in the press box, but it looked clearly out of bounds from our vantage point, and it just felt out of bounds. And then all of a sudden you look at the replay, everybody's waiting for the replay, and there it is, one hand. It's like, oh my God, he caught it.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
It was really impressive. There was an eruption on the sideline when the review happened, because I don't think anyone in the stadium knew that it was complete until the review came up on the video board.
The biggest eruption was from Tim Polsick, who when he saw the replay up here, he turned to the crowd behind the Bison bench and was starting to do this and go crazy like Tim will do. So he started the whole celebration there after the catch.
I asked you, where did it go wrong for the Jacks today?
Well, their defense gave up 28 points, but let's talk about why that is. And the quarterback for North Dakota State's pretty good. The quarterback, if there was a question about his place in NDSU football history, and I don't know why there should have been, there probably was, because he's only won one national championship, and it took him until this year to beat the Jackrabbits. But this game, in this setting, to put the Bison past the Jackrabbits, to send them down to Frisco, if you put up the Mount Rushmore, to use the cliche of NDSU quarterbacks, Cam Miller has cemented his spot on that mountain.
It's going to be a big mountain, isn't it?
It is.
How many faces can you have on it?
But
we're going to start building the second one.
He's not the gifted athletically guy like a Trey Lance or maybe even an Easton Stick or a Carson Wentz for sure. But my gosh, he's won 44 games. We talk about the fact that this victory kept Mark Gronowski from the Jackrabbits of passing Easton Stick for 49 all-time victories. Cam Miller has 44. He's only 4 or 5 behind the record. He's going to Frisco now for the 3rd time in his career. And again, in the 2 games when the Bison needed him most, kind of the question coming into the year was, Cam in the playoffs is sort of, how was he this year against the Jackrabbits in the big games?
Yeah,
he was lights out. So that's a big reason why that they unleashed his running game a little bit, and he made the throws that he had to. And they got some help from the Jackrabbits with the face mask and with the cheap hit, or the late hit out of bounds. The Bison performed and the Jackrabbits didn't.
I don't know if you agree with me, Jeff, but this score doesn't happen unless Cam takes over the run game like he did. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think that's something we talked about all week is I said the Bison running backs wouldn't get over 100 yards combined. I turned to Mike like halfway through. I go, they're not going to get over 50.
Yeah.
But Cam Miller ended up with, 93 on 15 attempts along a 25, and that was a big one. The game tied, and with a 15-yard late penalty, that's a 40-yard play. That was a huge play in the game. But, you have your Walter Payton Award finalist. You put the ball in his hands, and why not? And that's what they did. Similar to what the NDSU did against with Trey in the 2019 title game. Put the ball in his hands and say, get the job done, and we're going to roll with you. So smart play calling by
and with Easton Stick in 2018 on this field against the Jackrabbits. Easton Stick, they just ran him 25 times and said he's our best player. Kleiman thought he was the best player in FCS, and they put the ball in his hands.
Carson against Jacksonville State.
Jimmy Rogers, the South Dakota State coach, I know this is one heck of a rivalry, and some things happened in the game today that the Bison players, and specifically Cam Miller, weren't happy about.
Yep.
And Cam Miller said on national TV after the game, "I hate the Jackrabbits." But Jimmy Rogers, in the press room, said that Cam Miller should win the Walter Payton. He's the best player in FCS right now, and that's a high compliment.
Yep.
You know, I mean that's pretty good.
Right. I think we have to give high compliments to the Bison defense.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. They were awfully good. The defensive line, outstanding all year. Outstanding today. They stopped the run. They bottled up the running game after some success early on, and they forced a turnover that was really the momentum changer in the game. It felt like with the Jacks up 14-7 in the second quarter, they were starting to move the ball. They were starting to run the ball. They forced a fumble with Amar Johnson, ran that in for a touchdown 7 plays later, and that just flipped the entire game. And so kudos to the Bison defense. They're shorthanded in the secondary. They went with Ryan Jones more today than they have.
His game of his life.
He played the game of his life. So the Bison's defense was the story again.
I think Enoch Sibomana had a fantastic game, and you're exactly right, Mike. That fumble late in the second quarter, that was a key turning point, wasn't it?
There's a chance there for SDSU to gain some separation. I thought they had the momentum. Clearly, they were the better team. Clearly, Amar Johnson had that 39-yard touchdown run. He had less than 40 yards after that the entire game. Yeah. So on your point on the defense, but that was a huge momentum changer. The Bison scored, tied it up, and plus you knew they had the ball coming back to start the third quarter. Right. So it just changed things.
So the Bison will play the winner of Montana State or South Dakota, and by the time we're recording this, that game has not happened yet.
It's 14-14 as we record this.
Is it?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
I don't even know what time of the day it is right now. Is there a team you'd rather see in Frisco?
I don't think it matters.
There's storylines either way.
But Montana State probably has the more powerful, explosive offense, although South Dakota's okay in that category too. South Dakota's defense, of course, is fantastic. They beat the Bison down in Vermillion with that late comeback. There are probably some of the Bison team who'd like to, avenge that loss and have the revenge angle, but I'm not sure it matters. It's two really good FCS teams, and SDSU's a really good FCS team. It should be a good championship game no matter who makes it.
Right. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. You got Brent Vegan, former player, looking to, get back at his old school. Bob Nielsen, been around forever. It's just, it's the best 4 teams by a mile were left, weren't they?
Yep.
I mean, not even close.
Yep. And these were 2 pretty even teams. They played 2 games, and the total point differential was 11 points. And they could have this one couldn't go either way like the first one did, but it's 2 pretty equal teams. These 2 were.
So the Bison advanced to Frisco after the big win against South Dakota State. Any final thoughts from you two before we pack it up for a couple of weeks?
No, I'm finally thawed out from the pregame show outside.
right? I'm finally getting some feeling back in my toes here a little bit. Any final thoughts from you, Mike?
I didn't think this was a all-timer Bison team to start the year, and they had their ups and downs. But I don't know if they have the talent of a 2021 team or the roster of a 2019 team. But they're plenty good.
Give it up to Tim Paulsek, first-year coach.
Absolutely.
And Tim addressed it after the game. He said, "Look, this team is fine. We have all kinds of talent for FCS." He said, "But maybe we just put a little energy back into the program. We gave it a little boost in terms of just, kind of giving it that little push it needed." And I mean, he wasn't even a finalist for any Coach of the Year awards. And I know it's tough at NDSU it's always the guy that turns a 3-8 team into an 8-3 team that wins those awards. But I mean, tip of the cap to Tim Paulsek for what he's done this year for NDSU football. I think they've been overall a better coach team this year. There really hasn't been a game where they came out flat and just looked dead. Maybe that first playoff game, but they still won that by 20 points. But Tim Paulsek deserves some kudos for this year for sure.
Absolutely. So Tim Paulsek and his squad will await the winner of Montana State or South Dakota after this 28-21 win over South Dakota State. For Mike McFeely and Jeff Kolpack, I'm Sam Goetzinger. Thanks for joining us on the Bison Postgame Show.